Tech Bite Tips.
Welcome to another Tech Bite Tips video. In this video we're going to be talking about setting up QBitTorrent as a torrent client in our NAS so that we can download torrents. If you're not familiar with it, torrents are a way of sharing files. It's a peer-to-peer type of file sharing. So basically when you have a file and you become part of a torrent, you download parts of the file and you share those parts of the files that you have to other people that want to share those files too. So we're going to be setting up QBitTorrent in our NAS so that we can become part of the pool of people that are receiving and sharing those files. So let's get to it. Welcome back. In the previous video we set up SabNZBD, so that's currently the only container that we have running in our NAS. So now in this next video we're going to install QBitTorrent, which is a torrenting application. So we're going to go into the registry here in Docker and we're going to search for QBitTorrent. And here we'll pick the Linux server QBitTorrent, as that's a very reliable image. We right click, select download this image, and then we select the latest version and we click select. And now we just have to wait for the image to download. As we can see, it is working on that. This is going to take a little bit. It's a very small image, so it shouldn't take that long. Alright, it has finished downloading, and as you can see it's 203 megabytes, so that's a pretty small image. And now there's one thing that we need to check, because if I am not mistaken, QBitTorrent tries to run on a port that we have already used. So let's go real quick into SabNZBD, click select it and click details, and it says that we're using port 8080. So let's keep that in mind, because if this prompts us to use port 8080, then we have to use another port. So now what we're going to do is we're going to select QBitTorrent. We are going to click the launch button, and then we're going to go ahead and do the appropriate thing here. We're going to rename this container as QBitTorrent. And we're going to enable resource limitation, because we don't want that container to take everything. We're going to enable auto restart, and we're going to go into the advanced settings real quick. In the advanced settings we have to do the usual here, which is we need to add 3 new environment variables. One is going to be for the time zone, which is TZ. The other one is going to be for the process user ID and the process group ID. Time zone, I'm going to select America, New York, which is the Eastern time zone. And for the user ID, we're going to put the 1026, which is the usual, and for group 100, which is the usual. In this Linux server image, we don't need to add anything else, so we're going to save that. And then we're going to continue by clicking next. Then we have to specify here, like we said, it expects to use port 8080, but we already are using that, so let's give it 8081. And for the port that we're going to use for our connections, we're going to use the same one that is suggested here, 6881. So you have to also notice that you might have to port forward the 2 ports, UDP and TCP, so that the connection is not restricted from your router. Not necessary, but if you do have issues, you might have to do that. So then next we go with next, and now we're gonna add the folders that we normally have to give to hold our data, etc. So we're gonna go into Docker configs, and we realize that we don't have a folder for this application. We only have SabNZBD. So let's go in here, go into File Station, go into Docker configs, and create a new folder for that application, QBitTorrent. Click OK. Now we have that, so our configuration files should be stored here after that. So now we refresh this, we select Docker configs, and we click QBitTorrent. Additionally, we're gonna add another folder for our downloads that have been completed, so we select the completed here. We add another one for our downloads that are incomplete torrents, and we are going to add another one for where we put our torrent files. Now we're gonna say that this is gonna be the config inside our container. The completed we're gonna name downloads. The incomplete we're gonna name incomplete, and the torrents and ZBs we're gonna just call it torrents inside our container. So /config points to our configuration file location, /downloads to all the files that have been completed, /incomplete to files that are in the process of downloading, and torrents, so that we can track if we drop a torrent in there that the client automatically starts that torrent. So now we can click next, and we validate that the information is correct, and we make sure that we select run this container after the wizard finishes. So we click done, and this should then create a new container here that is going to be starting. We can see it also in the overview. Now we have two containers, and if we go in here into QBitTorrent and select details, and we go into the logs, we can see that it is preparing our container. Everything seems to be working fine. We're going to access it on port 8081, not 8080. The container is exposing 8080, but we're actually listening on the host on 8081. And it says our default username is admin and the default password is admin. So we can go ahead and go into that URL to validate that it is able to connect. So we go 10.0.0.73, which is the IP of the virtual NAS, and then port 8081, which is the one that we're expecting to listen to. Okay, currently it says unauthorized. Let's see what happened here. Okay, this is probably because the container doesn't like the port to be redirected from 8080 to 8081. So let's go ahead and do something here. Let us switch SAB and ZBD to port 8081, and then have QBitTorrent run on 8080, and hopefully that way we can get that response. So first here, let's choose another port that is not being used, so that then we can do the appropriate changes. Now we select SAB and ZBD, and we put 8081 on SAB and ZBD. Okay, let's start that, and let's make this 8080. Okay, so now start that one. Let's check if 8081 is running SAB. Okay, it is. So now let's try 8080, and now we got QBitTorrent. So that's how you get QBitTorrent running if you get that unauthorized error message. Now we should be able to log in with the credentials that were given, which were admin. Click login, and yes, we are inside QBitTorrent. So it looks like everything is working so far. Perfect. Now that we have QBitTorrent running, we can go ahead and configure it. So to configure QBitTorrent, we can click here on the gear icon, which is the options, and then we will start making changes here to change the configuration of how the application behaves. And the first thing that I would change here is the torrent management mode. I would make that automatic. We want to relocate the torrent whenever the category is changed, and we want to also make sure that the relocate the affected torrents to change the default safe path, and the category safe path is changed. And then here we need to make sure that the default safe path is actually the downloads folder that we specify that contains our downloads that have been completed, but then we want to keep the incomplete torrents in the /incomplete directory. So that's going to be another change that we make. And then in the part here where we monitor downloads, we're going to put the default save location first is downloads, and we're going to add another one for the monitor folder, which is the torrents that we created. So if we drop a torrent in the torrents folder, it's going to automatically add it to QBitTorrent, and by default we're going to save to the downloads folder. And let's see, I think that's basically all that I have to change in this tab. So let's save that. Let's go back again. Let's go to the connection tab. We want to use TCP and micro TP, so that's fine. We're going to use a 6881 port that we specified before, so we leave that as it is. And then here, depending on your connection, you would tweak the connection limits. I have a pretty good connection, so I could probably pump this up to 1000 here to be the maximum number of connections. And then connections per torrent, it's okay to leave it at 100. And then global maximum number of upload slots, 20 is fine for me. And then maximum upload slots per torrent, we can put that as a 5 maybe. And here's an important thing that we're going to touch on later in another section. The proxy server, it's something that we will have a separate section to talk about this. So for now we're just going to skip it and save that. Go back again into the speed. What we can do here, if you want to limit the amount that you want to share, like the speed at which you want to share, you could do that here. For example, you could specify that your maximum upload speed is 200 kilobytes, depending on your connection also. If you have a 0, it means unlimited, so downloads is unlimited. And you also have the option here to have an alternate rate limit. That's if you trigger that on a specific time, or you can also do it manually. But for now, that's mainly the thing you want to change. If you want to change the global rate limit, and this is good with this too. So then we save that, we go back again. Then when we go into BitTorrent, this talks about how you connect to the BitTorrent network. And by default, this looks right. Allow encryption, that's okay. Torrent queuing, that's about right. So I wouldn't probably change anything here. Maybe you could do something which is, for every torrent that you add, you might want to put like an OpenTracker. So if you want to add OpenTracker to all your torrents, you can just select this and put the UDP : / and then the address for OpenTracker, and then we save that. And then RSS, we don't really need to do anything. The web user interface, yes, we want to make a change here. Let's say that we want to change the username to be something else. So let's put QBitTorrent for the user and password. If you want to bypass the authentication, if you're in the local network, you can use this and then put your network CIDR here, and then it won't prompt you if you're in that network. That's up to you. And here you could enable some security features here by default, that's okay. And if you have a DNS name, you can also do that here, but I'm not going to do any of that, so I'm just going to save it. And then here in the advanced, we don't really need to do anything. So that's basically the main configurations that you need to do to QBitTorrent. The main part is in the downloads tab. That's the most important one. But yeah, that is basically it. It should be configured, it should be working. So now if we test it with a torrent, let's look, for example, for a Ubuntu ISO, or not Linux, any other Linux. let's see what we can get. Distro watch. Let's get, I don't know, Debian. Some Debian, I guess would be good. Oh no, let's see if we have Ubuntu here. Okay, Ubuntu. So we get this torrent address. We should be able to just go in here and put the address of that torrent. And then here we don't have any categories or anything yet. So for now, that is going to be it. We can just select download. And then it should start downloading our ISO for the Linux, the Ubuntu desktop version. And as we can see, we have peers, everything is working, the tracker's working, our OpenTracker was added, but it's not contacted yet. So, I mean, it's working. That's the main thing. It's downloading pretty fast, so that's good. Our QBitTorrent is working. So that's going to be it for the configuring section. Okay, now that our QBitTorrent is configured, there's one important thing to talk about, and that comes about security. Specifically, when your ISP is snooping on your traffic, or not only your ISP, any other kind of thing could be monitoring the traffic in your network. So there's several ways you can prevent that from happening for many reasons. For example, your ISP might not be okay with you torrenting content off the internet, or you just don't want people to see that you're sharing files. And for that, there's two main ways that you can sort of protect your privacy, so that it's harder, and basically, if you do it well, almost impossible for companies and other people to see the traffic that you're sharing over the torrent network. The first one is when we go into configure and we specify connection here. We had this proxy server option that we kind of mentioned before. So you can use this to route your traffic through a proxy server, so that it looks like your traffic is directed to a specific service on the internet instead of peer-to-peer file sharing. It is usually in the format SOX4, 5, or HTTP. SOX5 would be probably the best option, because HTTP is just plain text, and SOX4 is pretty old. It's still not as good as the other option, which is using a VPN. But if you don't want to pay for a VPN, or you already have access to a proxy server, you could do that. You could, for example, go into a list on the internet, like proxy list, and look for SOX5 proxy servers. And this will give you a list. We can just do a sample here test. So we're gonna get one of these IPs, which has a low latency compared to others, and we just basically say it's a SOX5. We specify the IP, and then for the port we need to check here, it's 4145 for the specific proxy, and then you say you want to use it for the torrents and the peer connections and hostname lookup. And then in this case, this is free proxies. They're not very reliable, so I would tell you, if you're going to use proxies, try to get a proxy that you actually pay for, or not just a public one that is not very reliable. This is just for testing purposes. And normally, if you have a private one, you would need a username and a password. For that case, you would select here authentication and put that in there. And once you have that, then when you save those changes, then everything, all of your connections will go through that proxy. So it'll work the following way. Your computer connects to that specific proxy on the internet, so it's a direct connection to the proxy, and then from the proxy all the peers will be connecting there. So to your ISP, it just looks like you're connecting to one server that is giving you one specific service, right? But you're actually getting all your peers connected to the proxy. The other option is using a VPN. We're going to cover that in another video, which is completely setting up the QBitTorrent using VPN. so that's going to be on another video. But yeah, we could test that this works. Hopefully this proxy is going to be nice for us. So we're going to grab again our Linux distribution link and we start it, and hopefully it'll be able to connect. As I said, these types of proxies are not very reliable, so it might not work. Like, looks like in this case it's not working with that proxy because it's, oh, there we go. Now it's finally working. Let's see if we can resume it and actually get something out of it. Okay, it says downloading. Do we have peers? We do not have peers yet. So this is how you usually know if your proxy is not working properly. It'll look like it's downloading, like it's working, but you won't see seeds and peers because the proxy server is actually not connecting to anything. So you can validate that by switching to another proxy or just disabling the proxy at all. So let's try another proxy just in case. See if that decides to work for us. And then the port here. So save those changes. Then we would probably benefit from stopping this torrent and then restarting it to see if it is able to connect. You see also that when your proxy is not working, your trackers are gonna time out. So you're gonna probably get things like that. Okay, I'm trying to see if it re-announces again and tries to download. Timed out. I don't see that it has done anything. So yeah, that's the problem with public proxies. It's trying now again, but it looks like it's not successful. Those proxies from this list are not working. So once again, if you're gonna use a proxy, try to get a proxy from a reliable source, preferably a private proxy. Some VPN providers actually give you a free proxy service if you are subscribed to their VPN service, so that's a good option that you have if you don't want to install a full VPN but you actually want to have some sort of obfuscation of your traffic. So now we can validate that the problem was here if we just disable the proxy, and then immediately you'll notice that when we disable it, it'll start working pretty fast. So let's pause it. Okay, it's paused now. Let's start it again and see how it behaves. Re-announce. And as you can see, it immediately started to download. So yeah, the problem is that, as you can see, the proxy, the free proxy from this list, none of them are working. So don't rely on public proxies. But if you do have a good proxy, you can use it to obfuscate your traffic to protect from snooping. And that's it for this section.